Right now, we're like 19th in venture capital funding of all the states. We want to be a top 10 state in venture capital funding. We want the next great company, the next billion-dollar unicorn to be in Michigan. And then also, we want to be number one in any federal investment related to mobility of all 50 states. And so that's the plan. Those are the pillars. Those are the goals. And now to unpack it, we have some amazing experts. I want to start with you, Tremaine. Why does a plan like this matter?
The goals that were recently outlined in the Healthy Climate Plan by the state of Michigan and announced by the governor several months ago really are reinforced in this state mobility plan. So building out the necessary infrastructure for 2 million electric vehicles by 2030, that is a really tremendous, ambitious effort. And this plan really sets forward that pathway for us to reach that end goal. And not only a pathway to building out the infrastructure for vehicle electrification, but I think what's really important and what we key into at the Michigan Public Service Commission is how do we begin to build out the full value of vehicle electrification, not only for residents throughout Michigan, but of course for ratepayers. Vehicle electrification can provide energy resilience for our communities and for households. It has the ability to put downward pressure on electricity rates. And I think one of the most important things, of course, is that it provides the ability for us to mitigate climate change and to create healthier, more breathable air, especially for those communities that have been historically most harmed by environmental injustice.
You know, as everybody knows, the latest data that we've seen from NHTSA shows that traffic fatalities are increasing, and they're increasing at a relatively alarming pace, and so the topic of road safety is really important. DOT recognized in their safety strategy that they released earlier this year that there is not just one piece to this. Auto manufacturers have a role, but infrastructure has a role, drivers have a role, safety on our roadways through signaling and other things, and also post-crash safety. So I was really alarmed to see that, you know, I grew up on a farm in Iowa. If you get in an accident in rural Iowa, the quickness of life-saving technology to get to you is much, much different than if you live in a more urban area. So these are all really important issues that we have to work on together. We have to have a holistic approach. And there are technologies that are coming, connected, automated technologies that are really have a lot of potential to improve safety, but they can't deliver all of that on their own. We have to work together on all the holistic pieces of the transportation system to help get those fatality numbers down.
What really excites me, I believe, is, again, going to be this increased integration and valuation of vehicle electrification and creating just additional incentives for customers to be able to not just be recipients of electrons on the grid, but actually be active, responsive resources on the grid. I think that's the really change in dynamics that's going forward. And whether you're talking about distributed generation systems, at-home batteries, or electric vehicles, all of those technologies are going to be important cogs in the wheel of the system. I think the other piece that I'll quickly mention too is the role of transit vehicles as well. When we're talking about electrified buses or school buses, these are going to be really valuable, huge capacity resources to put there on the grid. I remember during the pandemic, the school district in Jackson, Michigan, they retrofitted their buses to put Wi-Fi hotspots on them and actually deployed those buses in communities that had low broadband adoption rates. And you can see a future where 2 weeks ago when we had that power outage event, we had over 300 schools without power that week. And you can see a future where if you have, again, thousands or tens of thousands of transit vehicles with these large batteries to be able to be deployed and resilience technologies and tools in communities in a similar way.
It's clear that talent and innovation go hand in hand, right? They do. And when you look at those companies that are out there in automobility, if you haven't walked through to see those startups, they are the providers of new technology, and the OEMs and the suppliers are the consumers of new technology. So there have to be really a couple things in place. There has to be an environment where those companies can thrive. That's why I think the train station and what they're doing in Tech Town what they're planning in northern Michigan with mobility startups is really, really important. And people have to feel like funding will flow too. So, but the funders will be where the ecosystem is strong. You just look where they're at around the world, whether it's Silicon Valley or Austin or other places. It's a few things working really strongly together, and the role of innovation districts, that we're going to have 3 significant ones here in Detroit pretty soon, and others around the state, really play an important role. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but to get new ideas to spur from the people who are from here, and that's where we really want them to come from, so we can create real wealth.
You know, one of the larger goals in our strategy is to make sure that communities across the state have access to all the cool new micro-mobility, smart mobility options, not just the vehicles themselves, but the software platforms. So just putting your Ford hat on, which I guess you're wearing right now anyway, what advice would you give, seeing what you see happening across Ford around smart mobility and industries converging, as we try to chase better ways to do first mile, last mile, automated payment, and all the different things that make mobility so cool and important?
Well, so, I mean, I think one of the key things is for the state to have a strategy, and that's what we're here talking about today, is a 3-pillared strategy that really brings all of those pieces together, because we have to work collaboratively. Ford has a lot of big goals in electrification and automation and connectivity, and we can't necessarily deliver all of those things without all of the other pieces coming together. Michigan Central is a really great example of a public-private collaboration that's going to be awesome. Like, that is just going to be a really cool and great incubator for innovation, talent development, and it's all been done with the idea of also keeping the community involved and making sure that things are equitable and that there is, access to transportation for everybody, and it's affordable, and that's a main goal of Michigan Central. So, that's my advice. Do what we're doing and bring all of those pieces together.
I mean, I'll just come back to what I think drives it all. And I'll tell you who they were. So Polaris, right? They're a Minnesota-based company. They are in the process of electrifying their snowmobiles and ATVs. They're here. They're here at the show. They've been here all week. They actually have a tech center in the western suburbs here. And when we had them at a roundtable in Traverse City recently, that we put together to bring the outdoor technology and the mobility and auto industry together, the gentleman from Polaris said, somebody asked him, well, why are you in Michigan? He said, we're here because of the talent. I mean, that's it, right? And so we have this recognized strength of mechanical, design, industrial, electrical engineering, skilled trades, tool die makers, people who work in Industry 4.0. But that's our strength, and we need to leverage it. But what I'd like to see and what we want to see is we need to move with the industry. So the vehicle is a computer on wheels. The electrification of the vehicle, more semiconductors in an electric vehicle than an internal combustion engine propulsion system. So we're going to have to make sure that we have software engineers, coding, people who can program the robots in the factories, people who can work with the digital skills. So I really think that's important for all of our citizens. Things like the Apple Academy with Michigan State are important, but this is really that's what I feel is a strength of ours, but it's also going to be our challenge and our opportunity too. The vehicle is the center of the Internet of Things. It really is. And it has to interact with everything around it, and everything is digital and connected. And there are all different forms of transportation and mobility. I mean, you can see that there. You can see the flavor change out there. The one thing I hope we don't lose is that fact that it's ours and that people can bring their kids here like they have for decade after decade, because I think this technology is something that should inspire people too. So I think it's a sense of community, because it is our show and it's going to be our show, but it's also going to, we, like our economy, like our companies, have got to evolve, and the show is too. And listen, everybody reads the paper and there's lots of shots being taken, there's lots of positive things.